Hello and welcome back to Creative Pet Keeping. My name is Kasha and today we're going to get an update on my sibling female Betta sorority. Now all of these fish that you see are all sibling sisters. There might be one or two little sneaker males left over in here, but they were from the same unicorn bucket spawn in 2020. You can check out their playlist to see how they grew up and see their parents and watch their entire journey. But now they are currently living in a 20-gallon tall. Now a lot of them are runts, like this little girl over here. Even though she is actually currently a year and 6 months old, she is very, very tiny, which makes me wonder when you see little baby Bettas sold at PetSmart or Petco, are they really baby Bettas or are they just runts that people just decided they could market and sell to you as little baby fish? That is a mystery. I don't really know. So this whole tank is kind of an experiment. I wanted to see long term how a sibling sorority would do together if they were in an overcrowded situation over time, because one of the things I often hear is sororities do really well until they don't. And a lot of sororities are unrelated females that are put together, and when people do sell females, they tend to pull the nicest, biggest fish to sell, and usually those tend to be most aggressive. That is not always the case, but what I did notice is runts tend to be a bit less aggressive. So these are all the little smaller runty ones that if I were a Betta breeder that were producing a lot more spawns, I would probably have to call these guys, at least the smaller tiny ones, because those are the ones that wouldn't really sell. So I decided that, I'll keep them all for the entirety of their lives and do this experiment to see how they do. Now, the idea of an experiment can kind of sound kind of negative because you'd be like, why are you experimenting on your fish and your pets? But we really have to constantly be trying different things and documenting them and seeing what effects they have, because that ultimately helps to move the hobby forward and improve the hobby as a whole as well, because there's a lot of things we can learn from, whether it's don't do this or maybe do this instead, or maybe the whole idea of unrelated female sororities was maybe not the best idea, or maybe it was. Maybe sibling spawns are the way to go. Maybe it's not. Maybe female Bettas or Bettas in general should be kept, in isolated or non-Betta environments. Maybe they can be kept together in these environments. We have to always be asking a lot of questions and be willing to try things out, as long as it's also within reason, because you don't want to be intentionally putting your fish in harm's way. So for example, if I tried to have an all-male sorority, that might be a lot high risk, although I have actually heard someone in my actual fish club has managed a couple years ago to keep related males in one tank. Now, the key was there was no females in the tank, and then nothing changed. So they were there for the entirety of their lives. And it's one of those weird things that actually somehow worked. I don't really know how that worked, or if it was working to the benefit of the fish, because some things can appear like they're working, but they might not be the best thing. For example, you can keep a group of fish together that are alive, but they're not necessarily, thriving or doing their best. In this case, I also tried to see if I can add some shrimp in here, because I had some culls of my red cherry shrimp, and they did not last more than a day. All the females, as you can see, are quite savage, and they really went for all the shrimp, but they did enjoy the mental stimulation they got from it, because they do enjoy hunting, and they were very curious and interested, and it was a healthy snack for them. So, that was great. It wasn't very great for the shrimp, so now I know, don't add shrimp to these ladies. Although, it's a hit or miss with Bettas, because I've had Bettas before that I can keep around shrimp, and they would just look at them, not even try to nip at them. They would just kind of like stare and observe and not really care. And then I've had Bettas that just when they see shrimp, they're like, yep, here's a snack. I'm gonna go get it now. One thing that I will forever and ever repeat on this channel is fish are individuals. They're individual animals with unique personalities, and although different species will exhibit common, traits and behaviors, all fish will be unique. And that means that the guidelines that we have in the hobby don't always work for all fish. And while, for example, a specific betta care guideline may work for one person and their betta, it may completely not work for another person and another betta. So I think one of the best things we can learn to apply in the hobby is to have flexibility, to look at multiple sources and different methods and what you can do, and also experiment and see what works best for your particular fish. Someone can have a betta in, I don't know, 2 gallon, 1 gallon planted little tiny tank and do an amazing job, and that fish can live 5, 6, 7 years. Someone can keep a betta in a 20 gallon and that fish maybe will live for a year or 6 months. It depends on so many factors because there's so many different pieces that are involved in keeping captive animals. But I should mention though, because I don't want someone to be like, Kasha said that you should keep a betta in a 1 or 2 gallon because they'll live longer. No. That was just an example that it's possible, to do things better in a variety of different ways. Personally, you should be striving to provide the best that you can for your fish. Although the idea of what is the best is kind of tricky because with fish, it's a lot more difficult to get feedback and know if something is working or not. It's hard to assess whether a fish is necessarily happy. Because with bettas, a lot of things that people say that they do that indicates happiness are just natural behaviors, such as having a bubble nest is just a normal spawning behavior. It's not an indicator of happiness. So that's kind of tricky to measure. Maybe you can have a fish that just comes from a really poorly bred line and just genetically you have lost the lottery when it comes to fish genetics, and no matter what you do, what skilled of a fish keeper you are, you're not gonna have a fish that will live for a long time. So it's tricky. It's tricky, but all we can do, to be honest, is just try our best. Always keep learning, never stop learning, never stop asking questions, and never stop exploring different ways and different possibilities to do things as we strive to move the hobby forward and do the best we can for our fish.